Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. This week is a very special one where I have two guests who are not just friends of mine, but they are also repeat guests. I'm talking about Kristin Dwan, who talked about her near-death experience in hypnotherapy on episode number 432, as well as my friend Whitney McNeill, who was talking about spirit guides on episode 428. Both of these episodes are some of the fan favorites, so that's why I brought them back again. And this week's episode, which is all about the 5 ways to overcome energy burnout, is a 2-part series. So part 1 is right here with Aligned and Unstoppable, and part 2 is on Whitney's Spiritual and Ambitious podcast. So we will have in our show notes the link directly to the second part. So this episode is all about trends. So we're talking about what we're seeing within ourselves, within other people, within other spiritual entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about what's working and what's not working in the industry. And we're going to go into the 4 phases of burnout. So what's really special about this episode, as well as the episode we recorded for Whitney's podcast, is that we're getting really personal. So this isn't talking to you about things that we don't know about. We are sharing our personal experiences of being through hell and back and how to really overcome some of these big hurdles that we're up against. And if you're anything like me, you might be feeling overwhelmed by these things, maybe feeling a little bit alone or isolated, or feeling like maybe I should just quit and what's my plan B? So I hope, and it's my intention, I know it is Kristin and Whitney's intention as well, that this episode, as well as the follow-up episode, is going to be helpful to get you not just to embrace where you are, but to be able to have the tools so that you can survive and thrive through it all. Because really, your work is so important in the world. Your work matters, and we want to do whatever we can to keep you out there, keep you going, and keep you in high spirits. So let's get into this week's episode and dive right into the 5 ways to overcome energy burnout. Hey friends, welcome back to the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. I'm here with 2 of your favorite guests and 2 of my favorite guests. We are here today for a 2-part episode. So today we're going to be talking about 5 ways to overcome energy burnout. And I'm here with Whitney McNeill and Kristin Dwan. You know them, you love them. Kristin, my personal hypnotherapist. Whitney, my dear friend who talks to spirit guides. You know, just like the wooest people that I love. So we had this conversation a few weeks ago talking about these sort of trends that we've been noticing, and we wanted to share them with you all publicly because it could probably help people to manage your own energy, to know where you're at in the cycle, and to be able to thrive no matter what phase you are in. So I'm not going to get into bios and having them introduce themselves because they've been here before and you already love them so much. So let's just skip to the good juicy stuff. So let's dive right in. So let's talk about what energy burnout is for each of us, and maybe some of the symptoms that we've felt. So I'll pass it over to Kristin first, and I'll go last.
Yes. So energy burnout for me, I have named it and I call it the fuck it's. When even though I love what I'm doing and this is my huge passion, I will feel like, oh, fuck it. And just feel blocked, feel muddy headed, feel like everything feels heavy and hard. That's the fuck it's. And then when you're in the fuck it's, you start to make not such great decisions. And this can be for your health, this could be for energy, this could be for business. It's all around, right? So yeah, I call it the fuck it's, and that's what I feel.
And what kind of symptoms do you notice for yourself personally when you start getting into the fuck it's and like that energy burnout place?
Yeah, everything just feels heavy. Like even just going live or something, it's like, oh, I don't want to do it. Fuck it, I won't do it.
Mhm.
I make excuses, things start to feel hard and things just don't work out because I'm energetically not aligned and excited about it. So then of course the world, happens around me in that space.
Yeah. How about for you, Whit?
I feel like we need a fuck it bucket. So energy burnout, we just like put it into the bucket. Like, I don't care about this. I don't care about that. That's just where it is. I can definitely relate to that definition. For me, it shows up where I feel a bit caged and restless, but tired all at the same time, where I don't have the
Mm.
energy anymore to do things. And if I have a schedule, I get really resentful of the schedule, resentful that I have to do anything. And it can trickle down from if I'm in business and I'm experiencing it, it can trickle down into the family. And somebody asked me a question, I'm just like, I don't have any more energy to answer any of the things. I don't want to do any of the things. But then when I sit there, I'm bored. But I don't have the energy to go out and do the things to get out of boredom either. So it's a weird place, but resentfulness definitely shows up for me and feeling like I'm caged and I need more freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. That I resonate with both of you so much. And it's a similar thing. I don't feel as caged. I would say, yeah, it affects me on all the different levels. If I'm at that stage of burnout, everything seems harder. Mothering seems harder. The simple tasks that I'm doing on a daily basis, my regular routine that I always do seems harder. It's like a have to versus an enjoyable thing. I also get to fuck it, and that turns into behaviors like eating foods that are not healthy for me and helpful for me to stay in my highest vibration. I tend to put on weight physically. My body will sometimes also retain extra fluids. Like I'll notice even like my face will get extra puffy. I notice that like under my eyes. Um, and I get like short, like my fuse is shortened. So I don't have as much patience with basically all of the things. And I want to share one other thing that I know we'll talk about sort of later, which we've all sort of talked about privately, which is this energy that feels like parasitic entities that kind of show up in your field with that sort of downer energy of like, you should probably quit. Nothing is working anyway. So no one, it would probably be better in the world if you weren't in it. Like those kinds of nasty negative thoughts that tend to go into like a negative spiral and they affect me to make me feel anxiety. You all are nodding. So also, by the way, if you
Totally.
guys are just listening, we have this video as well. So if you're at emilyaarons.com/YouTube, you'll be able to see the full episode, or actually podcast, emilyaarons.com/podcast. We'll have the full video if you'd like to watch us nodding along and sharing our stories as well. So trends that you're seeing. I mean, I just kind of mentioned a little bit of that like parasitic sort of energy. What kind of trends are you all finding that are going on in our world, in the virtual world, in the business world, in the woo-woo energy world? What are you all seeing?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people right now are having in this place where they're burned out. This is a little bit of a different nuance to it. They have a fine-tuned radar about what is fake and what is real. Like they're craving more authenticity. And it's kind of like the bullshit meter. Like it's way up here. I know this is bullshit versus it's almost like maybe that's a superpower of burnout. Not that we want to be burned out, but it kind of helps you know, like, is this for me or not? Because we
Yeah.
have such a short fuse of nope, not doing it, or yeah, okay, kind of deal. But I have noticed that a lot of people feel like they are directionless and they feel like they're coming up on a big change. Like it's a huge change with them, but they don't know what's on the other side of the change. They feel really like they have no energy to make a change. They don't have any direction or insight as to what that change might be. And they're at this place where they feel like nothing's working for them. And I feel like we're in a place kind of collectively where it's hitting us in different ways. But if somebody is experiencing that burnout, it can feel like the light is shut out and you're in this dark place and you can get
Mm,
really negative, like you
mm,
said. And feel like so many people are like, what thought I knew my next 3 years, now I don't. Or I thought I knew my direction, my purpose. I don't know what that is anymore.
mm.
So very I'm questioning, being confused, that kind of energy is coming up.
Yeah,
How about
yep.
you, Kristin?
So I'm going to use the analogy of the tarot. The Tower card is happening right now. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much change. There is so much just like surprise and shock and awe happening all around us. And here's the beautiful thing about the tower. Yes, it sucks. It sucks when it's burning. It sucks when you have to like make the decision to like jump out of the tower before it falls. And when you are falling down from the tower, the phoenix arises, right? So what I'm finding is clients and friends and just everybody is, they are going through so many shifts, so much, like, yeah, with Whitney said, like, not knowing what they want to happen in the next 3 years, but then 2 weeks from the time that they make the decision, everything goes in flames, right? Everything
Yeah.
explodes. And also the universe has been in retrograde for quite some time. So
Yes.
planetary things are happening to like put the kibosh on moving forward and going towards the future. So what I'm finding is people are really ready to make huge shifts, and
Yeah.
they're ready to go deep into the roots of what it means to make that change. Not just, oh, I'm going to dream about what I want to do in 5 years. What am I going to do today?
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do about my past to make sure that I'm able to move forward towards that future?
Yeah. And I'll piggyback off of those too, because it's like this is this time of volatility where you might not have that plan like you used to going forward and have like this exact system and sort of knowing this is my trajectory, because here and now what you've done repetitively that used to have a guaranteed result no longer does. So you could be doing the same exact thing, the same exact formula 2 times and get 2 utterly different results. And I also want to say to everybody, we're speaking from our own experience. This is not like what we're seeing in other people. This is also what we are too experiencing. And something funny you just mentioned was around retrogrades. And I recently saw this funny reel that this guy was like, is it still retrograde or microwave or Gatorade? And I was like, thank you. Like we need that. And I think that with this volatility and with this kind of energy of who knows what's going on and will I even make it? Is there somewhere what? All this confusion. I think that with that, we always have to come back into our center, to come back to ourselves when we are focusing our self-care, because when everything is going crazy, that means we have to dial in those self-care practices even more vigorously and even be more committed. And like, if you're doing meditation once in a while during the week, no, do it every day. If you're kind of walking here and there, no, every day. If you are eating foods that feel nourishing, yeah, every day. Like this is like, it's like we're going to battle. And as light workers, we have to overcome a lot of this heaviness that's swirling around us in the collective field, but also inside of us, manipulating thoughts. We're on this like, so the more that you can do to better yourself during this time to find that equilibrium again is going to do a world of good. And I know on Whitney's podcast, we're going to be talking about really what are those steps? How are we going to go into that? So I'm not going to jump for it right this second and get into that because I am excited about talking about that. But I think that we have to understand that this self-preservation is everything. How can I make every day and every hour of my day count towards trying to feel my best? Because even when shit's hitting the fan, you can go, okay, well, that was out there and I can still live and survive. Everything is okay. Finding these glimmers of hope, finding things to laugh at, finding things to play with. Like it's not all doom and gloom, even if like what Kristin was saying is like the tower is burning and we're going to rise from the ashes. And I don't know about you all personally, I always read cards for myself and I channel for myself. Some of the repetitious messages, I would love to hear yours because like, I know we all get our own. And Whitney pulled some cards for me the other day because I was going through stuff. And the repetitious messages that I'm seeing is like, let go of the worry, the doubt, like everything is great. It's all working and abundance and happy and bright future. And it's like, Okay. So I'm curious, what are you guys getting?
I'm
I
laughing because I get where you're at, where you're saying like, where, how does this gonna work out? Sorry, Kristin, go ahead.
No, it's true. And so that's the beautiful thing about the tower. Yes, it sucks at the moment, and that's kind of what's happening. But if we don't release the tower, if we don't let the tower fall, it ends up getting in the way of us, and the universe will create it for us anyway. So that's why whenever I get these tower messages, and I have been getting a lot of tower messages for myself, it's like release the old paradigm, release the old way of like what you're clinging to, and go with the flow of the change that's coming in. I'm also getting the Queen of Swords a lot, and the Queen of Swords is a very powerful queen. She became a queen through feeling pain, and hello, dying and coming back to life. That's definitely me. So the Queen of Swords also gets her mind focused, like just like razor sharp on what she like that sword, and she cuts her way through what is getting in the way. So yeah, it's kind of like the come to Jesus time, come to Goddess time.
Mm, I love that. I feel like I'm getting a lot of messages similar to what you said, Emily, where I am asking for an action step. I'm asking for a change or, what's the outcome? And spirit's like, just rest, slow down, just pause, have patience, it'll all be okay. And I'm like, but I'm ready for the action. I'm ready to actually move forward with things. And spirit kind of is like, just sit down, just be in this place for a little while. But I do feel like things are changing and shifting a little bit now. But I know I've spoken to so many people who felt very similar in some of those messages where
Yeah.
they're very ambitious. They want to make something happen. And the message is receive. You need to just be and allow, because whenever we're manifesting something, it's like breathing. And I always use the symbol of a plant. If you're overwatering it and you're constantly doing it, the plant's going to die. If you ignore it, the plant's going to die. So it's this balance of, am I taking that inspired actions, or am I just taking actions because I don't want to sit there and rest? And I think that that's actually a clue of what has gone on in the world, is that so
Yeah.
many people have been busy, 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 especially in the Western world.
Yeah.
And we need to get more connected with our feminine, or the receptivity within us, and to just allow for pause. And what I get in general is the consciousness, the collective. It's like we have really been in action so much. So now it's really moving, like the pendulum swinging into this place of reset and rest, and we're
Mm.
uncomfortable with it.
Mm.
In fact, it's just part of our rest cycle that we're catching up. We are, like you said, Emily, building our energy, and this is a perfect time to double down on what's going to help us and those messages that we do need to receive. And when, the shit hits the fan, so many times we go for the chocolate, we go for the wine, or we just don't want to do anything. So we don't talk to spirit. I'm like, actually, this is the time where you do healthy things for yourself and you listen and lean into spirit. This is like the place where you really want to make that very close to yourself.
Yeah. And
That
let's give.
I am feeling that right on, Whitney. Like, I wanted to share, when I first started building my business, I was doing all of it. It wasn't about inspired action. It was like, let me just be this busy bee all over the place, like putting action towards it, like even if it wasn't inspired. And I got to the point where, yeah, complete and utter burnout, complete.
Yeah.
And spirit, I finally released my need to do. And I did a huge meditation, went out to the desert, just took some time. And what was given to me was my new mantra that I still use to this day. It's do less, be more, receive all. And that's how we actually receive. It's not about do, bro marketing all. It's not about any of that. It's about just really being in alignment and trust.
Mm.
Trust is a huge thing with that.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think that you just hit the nail on the head. It's like when we start our businesses, we are doing all of the things. And so to get a card like rest and don't do anything, you're like, no, I will fight you. I'm not going to do that. you will have to make me. And I see it with myself and I see it with my clients. And you will get that spirit dope slap louder and louder and louder. Every card is like, rest, stop, don't do it. Stop marketing. Get off of your computer, bitch. Like everything is like to tell you to stop. And if you're not listening, it starts to go into your physical body. Oh, suddenly your back is out, or you're dealing with health issues, or something else is taking you down because you've been getting the messages subtly, because we are too thick-headed and we've been programmed to keep going, do masculine energy, force forward. We're not listening to our body cycles, and it's being forced on us to take that break and to take that rest. And I think that the rest card is like one of the most insulting cards for some people because of that. It's like, how dare you tell me to take a break? I have busy things to do with my life. And it can feel like when you're in the cycle of creating and doing all those things, it can feel like, well, if I stop, everything's going to come to a crashing halt and I will die alone penniless, which is never the case. And what I've realized, and it sounds like you've also been through that cycle too, Kristin, is when I'm intentionally creating space, number one, it's not nearly as hard because you're like, it's on my schedule to not do anything this week, so I guess I can't. And there's not as much guilt associated with it. It's kind of part of the schedule. Like whenever I host a retreat the following week, I'm like, I'm not having team meetings. I'm not having interviews. I'm not on social media. I am out in the garden. I'm outside. I'm in the woods. Like you will not see me performing any song and dance. But that's also why I recover and I integrate so quickly afterwards with those new, upgrades that are happening. So this kind of blends us into the perfect conversation that we're going to kind of close on for this episode. And then it will like really open up a can of worms, like maybe pun intended, for the next episode on Whitney's podcast, Spiritual Ambitious. So we kind of touched upon these different phases that we've all been in where, maybe you're really burnt out, maybe you're really energized. And in our conversation a few weeks ago, we were comparing it to the 4 phases of a butterfly. And funny enough, I was walking this week with my son, seeing butterflies, and the library down the street had some chrysalises, and we missed when the butterflies actually hatched out of it. But something that we were all talking about was these phases of the butterfly. And for some reason, I think it's a common assumption that when the caterpillar egg hatches and the caterpillar comes out, the caterpillar crawls and eats the leaves, the Very Hungry Caterpillar book. And then it all of a sudden goes inside of this cocoon, and then we think it sprouts wings and it just like magically opens and flies away. And in that phase of when it's in the chrysalis, that caterpillar is no longer a caterpillar. It turns into liquid goo. It's not the form of a caterpillar that sprouts wings. It changes form entirely. It turns into goo. And this is an important part that we want to kind of dive into a little bit, because what Whitney was just talking about with these rest cards, and what I was just talking about with, you need to take a break and re-energize and plan for this rest period. What Kristin's talking about, the tower burning down and coming back as the phoenix. This is, the bird isn't just like plopping feathers. It's burning to ash. It's being reborn. And so this is a really specific phase in the cycle. And we like to compare it to the stages of the butterfly. So we have that egg phase, we have the caterpillar phase, we have the chrysalis phase, and we have the flying out butterfly phase. So I'd love to have you each share sort of what cycle you feel like you're personally in right now. What does that feel like? What are you going through? What are some practices that you're doing to help you in that phase?
So I've been in the goo phase for a while, and I just feel like I'm at the very end of it, like I'm gonna break out, right? But the goo phase has probably been one of the hardest phases for me, other than the dying phase, where just everything's letting go. The goo phase is kind of similar, where you're letting go of who you used to be, And so your plans, ideas for your business, offers, things that you might have had before, it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't resonate with me anymore, or it's just not working, or it's just, I don't know who I am. I need to like do nothing, like none of the things. And as a business owner, when you get that message of rest and be in the goo and just feel like it's all messy, it's like, but I also, am a business owner that wants to generate income. So in the goo phase, when you're told to do nothing, and if you're asking this about your business, you're like, well, how does this make sense? And Spirit's like, just trust the process. And that's literally the goo phase for me of, I don't know where I want to go, what direction, I don't know yet. It's kind of like I'm floating around in this stuff. And I just really have to trust. And it reminds me of just letting myself float. And it can be really beautiful when you allow yourself to float, and it can feel really nice. And just time and allowing your energy to heal or do whatever your energy is doing. You don't really have to know. And that's the key is I don't know. And just accepting that you don't know. And so now I feel like something's forming, and I just need to continue in that trusting of the process as well. So that's kind of where I've been in it. I'd love to hear where everyone else has been too.
Well, I was just going to say also, with attention to healing, I think that's also an important part for you right now is that goo face has brought your attention to your physical health, right?
Absolutely. Yes, because I have always in the past manifested a physical illness so I would rest.
Ah,
And exactly what you said earlier. And so this was a big deal for me where I spent months of this mystery symptoms in this goo phase where I had to halt everything in my business and to really dial in on what am I eating, what's going on, how can I be positive to myself. And a lot of it was what am I eating, and I need to do more rest. Literally what spirit guides have been telling me, rest, and this is what you need for your health right now. And so long periods of rest was really uncomfortable. But it is part of that phase, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard too when you think about rest, especially, I mean, you've been in business for quite some time. You have multiple streams of income coming in, and it still requires you for a lot of part. It's not just like, oh, I'll just rest for 6 months and I'll see you later when I'm done. There are still parts that pull you in. And I know as a friend, you've been like, nope, I can't, I won't, or you've tried. And it's like, this is not the day for it. This is not the time for it.
Absolutely. And so I have to let it go. It's
Yeah.
like if I'm supposed to do something and I just really can't, I have to just be okay with the way that my energy is feeling. So I've allowed in my schedule more space where I try to schedule the least amount of meetings because I just feels like that's what I need right now. And I will flex with certain things with deadlines and stuff. And then sometimes I just have to say, you know what? This doesn't feel good anymore. I'm not going to do it. And I did that over the past 6 months where I had this plan. I was going to do this launch. And I was like, no, it doesn't feel good anymore. I don't have the energy capacity, and my energy needs to be focused inward right now.
Yeah.
So why would I even go through the motions when I know it's not for my highest and best? And also it's going to fall flat. It
Right.
is if you're not feeling great about it.
Totally. What about you, Kristin? What phase do you feel like you're in?
So I had the honor of watching a butterfly emerge from the cocoon, and they don't just fly out. You know what I
Right.
mean? They come out, they're wet, their wings are all like stuck to them, and like they need to sit in the sun for a while and just become it's almost like a goo stage before the flight, right? I feel like I'm there. Like I'm not in the goo. I was in the goo a little bit earlier this year, and then I actually had a planned goo where I was like, I'm gonna go into the forest for a month and I'm gonna be goo. I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
force myself to just not do a bunch of shit. And oh boy, was that beautiful and amazing. To be goo in the redwoods is the best place. And so when where I am now is like I'm reborn, and I've got my like wet wings that are kind of stuck to me, and I'm like kicking it in the sun. I'm not ready to like go take off anytime soon. but I'm also, feeling excited. I'm feeling like there's a journey ahead, right? And I'm
Mm.
gonna be able to fly for this journey, not just inch along. So yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. What other things do you feel like you've noticed like in your business or personal life that have kind of like mirrored that phase for you?
Yeah, so last year I had another planned goo where I went into a huge training, a year-long training on where I had to become goo and figure out how to help people out of their goo, right? And so it's deep shadow work, calling in the one. I became a calling in the one coach, but so last year didn't really do much with that, right? Because I
Mm,
was still in the training process. This year, it's starting. It's almost like it's pulling me out, and it's selling itself without me even selling it.
mm.
So that's showing me like, all right, I'm in the flow of the goo. The goo has taken me. I'm seeing this like goo river.
Oh boy.
But it's taking me where I need to be, and the wings are there, and now I'm just it's belief in yourself, it's trust and flow, right? And
Yes.
that's taking me, and practice, right? They have to practice with their wings, and the more I do it, the better it's going to become. So yeah, it's very exciting to be in that stage.
Oh yeah, that is. And I feel like a little bit of that myself. The beginning of the year, I think the end of last year, the beginning of this year was definitely that death and rebirth and that slow finding my way to create a chrysalis. And the coming out in the spring for me was definitely that period. And it's funny, like I feel like my wings are open. I'm not wet, but I'm kind of like fluttering them. Like I'm like ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. And that's sort of where uh I feel that phase for myself. And with that, I've been really called towards, like I kind of mentioned, like really amping up my self-care practices. So I started doing Whole30. I started to pay attention to making sure that I'm exercising every single day in some way, moving my body, not like going to CrossFit or any of that crazy stuff every day. It's just a gentle, usually exercise. And even just like my meditation practice, I'm also connecting more with my ancestors lately. I'm doing more journaling. I'm doing things that are, sometimes like a nice to do practice, but doing them on an everyday basis. I'm taking my supplements every day. I mean, these things that I'm like really focusing on. Okay, I'm ready to go. I want to feel my optimal right now. And even with that phase of like, I'm ready to take off, I still get that like, ooh, maybe not right just yet. Oh, okay, I'm ready. Go. Yeah, maybe not. And I feel that like that building up of momentum, like preparing for something, preparing for flight. Maybe that's kind of where I'm at. So on the next episode on Whitney's podcast, Spiritual and Ambitious, we are going to dive into how to overcome energy burnout. We're going to be talking about the 5 different steps, some really actionable items, so that you can sort of identify where you're at in these processes. Hopefully our personal stories have helped you to identify where you are at. Maybe you hear your own self in our stories. And then on her podcast, we're going to really just dive into what are some action items that you can do every day to help you wherever you're at, whatever phase you're in. So we will all say adios for right now. We'll see you on Whitney's podcast. And if you are new to Whitney's podcast, we'll have it, of course, linked in our podcast show notes. It's messengerofspirit.com. But what's your direct link for your podcast?
You can go to messengerspirit.com/podcast, and I'll give Emily the direct link so that when it airs tomorrow, you can listen to it.
Perfect. I love the magic. Love it all. All right, all. We will see you on the next episode. Thank you, Kristin, and thank you, Whitney.